So it's really wonderful to stand here and see all of you. For the first time, the whole ReNew team together in the last 2 years, I would say. It's really, really a fabulous sight. And it makes me really proud to see the whole team that we've put together, to see all of you in one room together. The power of ReNew, as it were. So, normally, as some of you, how many of you have participated in ReNewers Day in the past? Or let me put it this way, how many of you have not participated in ReNewers Day in the past? Just put your hands up. Okay, so quite a few of you have actually. Okay, that's very good. So, you know that in ReNewers Day, we always have a function in the evening where I talk about how the company is doing and so on. And that, of course, I'll be doing again this year, so this evening. But the idea of standing up right now and talking to all of you is to talk about something that has become really important for us. And it is an area where I don't think that we have put really any effort behind it. And in some ways, and I won't say it's a fault of anybody, it's really a system, it's a culture, it's a way of thinking that we have got into. And in some ways, since I'm the leader of this company, in some ways the responsibility is mine. But I need the help of each and every one of you to address that problem. It is not something I can do myself. And so therefore, I thought I'd talk to you about it, share some thoughts, get your feedback, get you all to think about this issue as well a little bit, and then see if we cannot come up with something quite different from the way we've basically been operating in the past. So the first thing I'd like all of you to do is, I know all of you must be sitting with your respective departments. Is that a fair statement? Are you guys all sitting in your round tables with your departments, fellows? Or are you totally mixed up? Quite mixed up, so even within tables you are quite mixed up? Yes? Okay, fine. In that case, I won't ask you guys to move, otherwise I would have asked you guys to do some movement and try to get you guys mixed up a little bit. But that's fine. So the topic that I want to talk about is safety. And obviously it says so there, so it's obviously that's what I'm going to talk about. And the reason is, why do I want to talk about safety? And why safety? Why not quality or technology or innovation or something else? There are, of course, many cross-company initiatives that we should be running, that we would like to run. And so I think the fact that we're talking about safety first is in some ways the importance of this issue. And I'll tell you why it's the most important issue for me. I don't know how many of you know this person, but this person essentially used to work at ReNew. He was an off-roll employee, so he wasn't on-roll, but nevertheless he was working for ReNew, and he was working with us, and he worked with us for about 18 months. He went through various training programs. He went through not just one site, not just two sites, but he was working on his third site for us. And then one day, what happened is that he passed away. Why did he pass away? I was very, very shocked when I heard that this had happened in one of our sites. The reason that this happened, basically, is because in one of the solar sites called Vadagere, which is one of our sites in Karnataka, he was unloading some solar panels, and as they were being unloaded, they were actually stacked one on top of the other. And the one at the bottom was, the packing of that was a little bit damaged. And so the top one, as it was being lifted up, both of them, the top one actually started slipping and falling. And instinctively, Alok Kumar, because Alok is the person I'm talking about, he rushed forward to try to prevent it from falling, which is, I guess, a spontaneous reaction that some of us would have, right? But the reality is these things are very heavy. And so when it fell, it actually fell and hit his head. And unfortunately, he wasn't wearing his protective gear. And even if he had been, maybe it would not have helped. And because it fell and hit his head, He immediately collapsed and he had to be rushed to the hospital. But by the time he reached there, it was too late and he was declared dead on arrival. And it fell upon some of our senior managers, to go to his house. His parents lived in Ghaziabad or Noida, and tell his parents that their son had passed away in one of our sites. And frankly, I had not realized that solar installations could be something that lead to a fatal occurrence, and therefore I had perhaps not focused on it either. And of course, we have systems and processes, and some of you have gone through those training processes as well, and yet these kind of things happen. And the sad part is that Alok was not the only person that this had happened to in working for our sites. So if I show you what are the other fatal accidents that have happened in our sites, there was a gentleman who was working for a company called Madura Coats, which is one of our customers, on which we were putting solar panel installations on their rooftop. So it wasn't even a huge, big utility-based installation. It was just a rooftop installation. And the sad thing is that Manekian, who was the Madura Coats employee, the exact same thing happened to him as well. The solar panels were being offloaded, and as they were being offloaded, again one of them tipped over and fell. Again he rushed forward to prevent it, and it fell on him, and he died. Now in that case, we explained it to ourselves by saying, he wasn't really working for us. Maybe he had not gone through the kind of training that we would like to have given him, and he did something that he was not supposed to do. So we explained this away to ourselves. But the reality is that in working on one of our sites, this gentleman died. And then there was another episode in one of our sites in Andhra Pradesh, in our wind site this time, where an employee of not ours, not Suzlon's, but Suzlon's contractor, fell from the top of one of the wind turbines. And you know that these are wind turbines that are 120, 140 meters high, and he died. And before that, about a year or so before that, there had been another contract employee of ours who was doing some work in one of the transmission lines. He climbed the ladder, fell down from the ladder. Under what circumstances we could not fully find out, but basically he also died. And so what I realized is that, so the first person who died was the contractor, the last one, Raju Anjaneli, that I've listed here. So I said, okay, fine, maybe he was just a person who wasn't trained properly. Then the Suzlon's contractor person fell and died. I said, maybe he again wasn't trained. Third person died. I said he wasn't our employee. Maybe that's why he wasn't trained. Maybe that's why he died. And so I kept explaining all these things to myself. But when this finally this event happened with Alok on one of our sites, that's when I realized that I was actually fooling myself, and I was deluding myself into believing that everything was okay when actually it wasn't. The reality is I realized that we don't actually have any kind of a safety culture. And this is something that we have to address on a war footing right now, because frankly speaking, if I look at it, and if we expect to end the year with 4,000 megawatts, and we have 4 fatalities, then really for every 1,000 megawatts that we're adding, we're losing 1 human life, right? And that's not something that I can digest. I can't digest losing a single human life, because to me, anything that we do is not worth it if we are going to ultimately lead to this kind of a situation. So for me, that was a big wake-up call. And I said, this is not something that we can allow to have happen any longer. Forget megawatts. We don't want megawatts any longer. All we want is for our people to be healthy and safe. Okay, so that's really something that at least I have thought about very seriously. And I want to share some thoughts with all of you and make sure that all of you imbibe the same thought process. All of you also know that, having worked with me for so many years, that our entire focus so far has been on capacity expansion and growth. And I want to tell you guys very seriously here and now that that's not the way we want to run the company going forward. We want to make sure that there is a strong focus on safety and of course quality as well. But today I'm only talking about safety, right? But the two in some ways are a cultural thing, and they both go hand in hand. So what I'd like you all to do is to spend a few minutes right now just thinking about what would happen, how would your family react if something like this happened to you? Because all of you work at ReNew. What happens if you have either a serious accident or a fatal accident? How would your family react to it? I'd like you guys to just sit on your respective tables and just reflect on this. Talk to your neighbors. Think about how, if something happens to you, how they would react, how they would feel, and how it would impact their lives going forward. Just do that right now, because I want all of you to just understand what, for example, Alok's family must be going through right now. Because unless we understand this deeply, we will not be able to think about why some of these changes are required. So just go through it, put yourself in that position, and just engage in some conversation with your neighbors right now, and just reflect on it. I'll give you all about 5 to 10 minutes to just have that conversation right now. But I think you need to empathize with this kind of a situation. Okay, so please go ahead. It gave you a chance to really reflect on how important you are personally to the rest of your family, to your children, to your spouse, to your parents, to your other near and dear ones, and what not having you around is going to mean for them. I'm sure it's going to lead to a huge change in their life, in the way their lives will progress in the future, and that is something that I'm sure if you think about, it must be a very difficult thought, because when I think about those kinds of issues, I find it's very difficult for me to visualize how my family would then carry on subsequently. And that is why it's so important for all of us to work properly and collaboratively with each other to make sure that there is no further loss of lives in any of our sites going forward. What does our internal data show? Because it's not as if we don't have any systems. We do have systems. And the whole point to make here is that while we have systems, ultimately at some level there is only lip service that is being given to the systems. We are doing some reporting, but I think from deep inside us that feeling is not there, that we have to really focus on safety on a whole different level. For example, we've had 4 fatalities. The first lot of indicators are lagging indicators. We've had 4 minor accidents, 14 medical treatments, 63 first aids, and 98 near misses. Now, when you look at it, if each fatality, there should be almost some 400 to 500 near misses that should be there before actually one fatality occurs. This is the general trend of data from various other companies. In our case, we have only 98 near misses and 4 fatalities. What this tells me is that we're just not reporting enough. We are not looking at this seriously enough. And I think this is a culture that we have to definitely change. And when you look at some of the other leading indicators, for example, the audits that our EHS team does, there's 85% compliance and 68% have found closure. And there's about 1.6 days per person per year actually, which is spent on training, which is roughly a little bit below the average that it should be of about 2 days. But so we're doing things. It's not as if we're not doing things. But I think that somehow the focus that needs to be there behind this whole area is missing. So, as I said, we have a lot of data and processes. We're doing a lot of training. But the reality is that sometimes even when I go and visit sites, which is perhaps not as often as it needs to be, we know that many of our employees are not even wearing protective equipment when they're on the sites. As I said, there is inadequate reporting of near-miss episodes. And therefore, our performance is very poor. And even when you look at the previous page, some of the external things that we did, the CII, Northern Region and Southern Region scores, our scores are actually very low. And that is something that we have to address. So what we did is that to start thinking about how to address this problem going forwards, and recognizing that we perhaps don't have the capability and the expertise that we require internally within the organization, we actually hired an external consultant to just do a study of what they felt our safety systems were like. So there's a company called DuPont, which is a fairly well-known global company that we hired. And we asked them to basically do a very quick dipstick of what our safety standards were like. And they visited only 2-3 of our sites, both in solar and in wind. And they came back with some very obvious issues. And I'll just put up a couple of photographs from our sites, which shows that, for example, in one of our sites, we have electric water heater, which is just casually hung on the wall. In another case, we had electric wires being just joined together and lying on the floor. Anybody can step on this and get electrocuted. And so really, it just showed that I think, at the sites, we don't have the kind of focus and dedication on sort of total safety that we need to have. And obviously, what they reported back to us was not at all good to hear, particularly for me as the CEO of the company. And therefore, the inescapable conclusions that one came to is that while we've had safety training, it has not really led to a change in behavior. And unfortunately, within the employees, somehow safety is only considered a QHSE responsibility. It is not seen as being a core responsibility of each and every one of us. And therefore, it is not very high on our priority list. And I think wherever there is a problem and we have to make trade-off decisions, we always tend to go for focusing on somehow get the job done rather than get it done properly. And that's the culture that we have to definitely change within our company. We have to go from somehow get the job done to get the job done properly. I think that is the most important mindset change that we have to make. And I think if you look at it, for all of us, especially at the senior level, so far what is happening is that, in every organization you have managers, and you have the middle-level employees, and then you have, in our case, contract workers. Right now, all the issues that have happened have been at the contract worker level or at some of our vendors using contractors. But the responsibility ultimately lies with all of us. And I want to make sure that we don't have any more of these episodes happening. And we want to make sure that all of us, whether we are managers or employees or even contract workers, follow exactly the same set of standards and give the same level of protection to each other that we need to give to everybody. So I think that is something that is very important. So I think the important issue to recognize is, and sometimes what happens is you try to tell yourself that, look, it wasn't really our fault. We have all the systems, we have the training, we have the processes, we do the audits. So therefore, if an accident happened, it really wasn't the company's fault. It was the fault of that one person who instinctively rushed when something heavy was falling. Actually, it was his fault. He should have just stayed away, right? And therefore, we have a tendency to blame things on human error. And that's the wrong thing to do, because human error is basically it's just the final sort of a act which happens in the context of a whole series of systems, processes, culture, and beliefs. And so unless we address all of those other issues, we will create room for human error to happen and for that human error to lead to fatalities. So we have to address all the other elements as well. Okay, that is extremely important. And we have to just not have this view that it is somebody individual who made a mistake and therefore it led to a specific problem. And when you drill deeper into it, you realize, as I said, that the human error is only a symptom of a wider set of problems. And it really reflects the fact that safety systems are not as deeply ingrained as they need to be. And therefore, we have to really ingrain them very deeply, and it has to be across the entire organization. And so the question is, what is it that I want from all of you going forward? So the most important thing is, as I said, we have always been focused on our business results, which is what we end up achieving. But it is equally important as to how we achieve those things. And so that is something that is, the two cannot be mutually exclusive of each other. We have to focus on meeting our end goals, but meeting them in a way which is the right way. So no more wrong way can be tolerated by us. So from now on, we have to always ask ourselves the question, that if we set up these megawatts, did we do it in the right way? And if the answer to that question is no, then we should not give ourselves any credit for setting up those megawatts. So credit should only be given if we do things in the right way. So the means are as important as the end objective here. How we get there is as important. And that is something that we have to be very, very careful about. And clearly, I don't want people to be dying in ReNew for us to achieve our objectives. Right? That is not something that we can tolerate. And I think all of you will agree with me that that is not something that we have to have happen in our company going forward. So therefore, it is very important that each of you has to take accountability for this situation, because there are many, many people that depend upon each one of you. You know, when you see something that is not done in the right way, please stop the work. Please make sure it's done in the right way. Please do not compromise on anybody's safety issues specifically going forward. And I'll read out something to you from a book that Ravi Parmeshwar asked me to read, which is actually very interesting, and I spent some time reading it. And I'll just read some paragraphs out to you. And try to listen. You know, sometimes I know it's not that easy to understand when people are reading, but just try to follow what I'm reading here. So, and I'll read out 3 points to you guys. Okay? Systems are not basically safe. People in them have to create safety by tying together the patchwork of technologies, adapting under pressure, and acting under uncertainty. So there will always be uncertainty. And there will always be a whole bunch of different types of systems, technologies that you're working with. And therefore, there will always be some degree of risk in tying all of this together. And so therefore, that is really where your job comes in, which is that you have to tie in all of these different things and create a safety paradigm. The second question, or the second point, safety is never the only goal in systems that people operate. So when you're doing your work, you're not working on trying to just meet safety standards, right? You're doing it because you have to either get a plant up and running, or you have to make sure the maintenance of the plant is okay. So there are always going to be multiple interacting pressures and goals, which are always going to be there. There are economic pressures, pressures that have to do with schedules, competition, customer service, public image, pressure from the top, all of these things. So whenever you're doing a job, there will always be some pressure on you. Somebody is always going to be telling you, do it faster, do it better, do it cheaper, right? And so you have to individually manage all of these different issues and make sure that within that, you are able to basically make the right trade-off decisions. And that is the last point, that trade-offs between safety and other goals often have to be made under uncertainty and ambiguity. Very often, you have to make decisions. Should I go for this extra megawatt, or should I go for safety first? And there's no right or wrong answer. You'll never know what is your boss going to say to you if you make one decision or the other. So you have to take that decision. So there will never be somebody who's going to tell you this is the right answer and therefore do this. There will always be uncertainty about what you have to do. Okay? Goals, and keep in mind one thing, goals other than safety are easy to measure. Which means that whether you set up the megawatt or not, that is easy to measure. But whether you improved safety in some way and reduced the risk, that is very hard to measure. And so wherever you have a quantified target in place, it is always easier to move in that direction than it is to work on something like safety, because safety is very hard to measure. And it only comes to the fore when there is a bad accident or a fatality. Okay? So these are trade-off decisions that you all individually will have to make. And every day on the sites, you'll have to make these decisions. And therefore, the question is how much you are borrowing from safety to achieve your other goals. It's very difficult to measure that, right? Because you may be compromising on safety and it's hard to measure it. One doesn't know what you have done or what compromises you may have made in trying to get some other objective met. And so therefore, this is a very individual issue. Each of you is required to give that accountability, take that decision at the local level. So please keep that in mind when you're doing your jobs. And so what I've decided is that for next year, that is for the coming year, we will make safety as our most important goal for the year. Okay? And what that means is that we will push for very hard for excellence in this field. All of us individually, if we have to get outside help to help us in that direction, we will do that. Okay? We will make sure that we review it regularly. We will resolve areas of risk, and we will make sure that from the top management side, at least there is a very strong focus on this area. And so as I said, for FY19, our single biggest target has to be that we have to improve the safety culture in this organization. I personally do not want a single fatality to happen in our company, whether it's our on-roll employee, off-roll employee, our contractor, our vendor's contractor, whatever it might be. We have to make sure that we grow, but we grow in the proper manner. So when you guys go back, we will own the safety culture together. It does not belong to me. It does not belong to anyone individually. It belongs to all of us. Number two, we will not tolerate basic things like PPE violations. And we have to be very strict about this. Wherever we find issues like this happening, we have to take immediate steps. And those steps have to be serious. And the consequences will have to be felt by people who do not follow safety protocols. We will have to look at risk across all the work that we do with a much more serious lens. And we have to obviously work with the QHSE team in doing that, because they are the ones who are supposed to go make sure that everything is being implemented. But ultimately, as I said earlier, it is a responsibility of each and every one of you. You cannot outsource safety to the QHSE team. Okay? Next, take safety trainings for your team and for yourself. Do not delegate it to anybody else. Do it yourself, please. And then make a list of areas where you think there are risks to safety. And discuss this with your manager and discuss this with the QHSE team. Then obviously, we have QHSE audits. Do not do things in a way that you're just brushing things under the carpet. Do not think, oh my God, QHSE is coming again. Chalo, let's just do it somehow or the other. Get a reasonable score. From now on, we're going to start measuring people on the score that they get. And we will make sure that safety becomes a specific KPI in your performance assessment. Okay, so that is to make sure that it is everybody's responsibility to own safety. Okay, so that is my message to you all, that this year we're going to focus very strongly on safety. I am personally shocked that we've had the kind of accidents at our end. As I said earlier, I tried to ignore them, I tried to put the blame elsewhere, but then I realized that it is actually our own processes, systems, our own culture, our own way of looking at things that are at fault, and that is really what we have to address. And over the course of the next 1 year, we will do our best to work together and make sure that we create a safe working environment for all of us, whether it is in the head office, whether it is in the sites, whether it is in any other aspect of our work, so that we do not have any serious accidents again going forward. Okay? Are you guys all resolving along with me that that is what we will do? Yes? Stronger, louder? Even louder? Come on, guys. This is not good enough. Louder? Okay, that's better. Thank you.